IA Literati list several times, and she always tells a great story about her family in rural Indiana, which isn't something but now she's focused on an individual. Is it your father? The Making of Nino, a memoir. So here's Mary Gibson, who has dug deep into her family history and into her father's biography.
First picture for me will be my father in his military uniform in front of the book. Okay, well, I can't see out of these glasses, so let me wipe them here. And I have my own little speech written out because I tend to have what my mother would say, la cagareda de boca, diarrhea of the mouth. So I will try to stick to the script here. So thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this event once again. It's a pleasure to be here in person. If you're new here, please allow me to introduce myself to you. My full real name is Maria Evelina Veronica Matury-Gibson. And yes, I hid my name for years and still try to hide it now when it gets to be too hard to explain. I was born to Italian immigrants from Sanagra, Sicily. Since retirement from full-time work as a nurse practitioner, I spend my time writing memoirs about growing up as a child of immigrants. It was far from easy, but it has been extremely rewarding. As most of you know, my first book, Remembering Strawberry Fields, is about my life growing up on the farm in Indiana, where we were never truly accepted. My second book, Entrusted with Their Care, A Nurse's Story, is about my very colorful and long career as a nurse and nurse practitioner. My third book, Against the Wind, is about my coming to terms with retirement from full-time work and my frustration with the healthcare system, and my trip to Italy to learn more about myself and my feelings about how older people are treated. My newest book, is The Making of Nino, a memoir. It's about my father, or at least what I know about him, and his long and very interesting life. When I began this project, I began to wonder, we really don't know our parents, do we? We don't know what they're thinking, what motivated them to make the choices they've made, or to do the things that they have done. We always seem to take them for granted, if that is, you grew up in the time period I did. They were fixtures in our lives. They were there in the morning when you woke up, putting food on the table and clean clothes on your bed. They were there at night when you went to bed. As a child, I never remember seeing my parents in anything but their everyday clothes, always dressed, always working, worrying, and planning. Now that I'm old and failing more as time passes, I wonder if my children really know me or care about what motivated me to make the choices I've made. So in trying to better understand my father, I hope to better understand myself, and perhaps my children will better understand me. I have grown to understand and appreciate the sacrifices my parents made in order to come to America and raise their 6 children in a free society. I feel I know them better now than I ever did growing up or when they were alive. They were extraordinary people and not what you would call typical. Although my parents had an arranged marriage, they loved deeply and put each other first. My father, Nino Maturi, spelled M-A-T-U-R-I, who had his name changed in Ellis Island to Matury, was born in 1894 to Angela Lenzo and Nino Maturi. And yes, that would make him 127 years old tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Anyway, that's just an interesting little fact. My mother, Maria Shasura, was born in 1908 to Rosa Iopola and Carlo Shasura. My father had a rough childhood and grew up in the streets of Sicily for most of it. He never went to school and never learned to read or write. However, I have come to know that there was never a more hardworking or determined man, a man who knew his shortcomings. He fought to overcome these facts every day in every way he could find. He was one of the last of a dying breed called self-made men, hence the name of the book. His first job at the age of 10 was as a pig boy, guarding the pigs in the stockyards to be shipped overseas for slaughter. The job afforded him some money for food and a place to sleep. As a teenager, he figured out that some of those ships could go to America, and he stowed away on one of them. He got all the way to the USA before being found. He was immediately sent back on the next ship bound for Sicily. Starving vagrant boys were a problem in Sicily at that time. They were often rounded up by Carbonari and arrested for petty theft of food. But feeding them was costly, so they were conscripted into the Italian army. At first, it was a dream come true for my father to have food 3 times a day, a clean bed, a nice uniform, and boots. My pa found talents he never knew he had. He learned to write his name. He was an excellent marksman, horseman, horse trainer, and sword fighter. He was clever, resourceful, and quick to learn a skill. When World War I came, he was sent to the front lines to fight for Italy. He was captured by the Germans. Despite having no education whatsoever, he survived capture by playing the game, so to speak. He was always alert and ready for whatever his captives threw at him and his fellow soldiers. It was more than 13 long months he spent as prisoner of war before President Woodrow Wilson got the US involved in that war, and the war ended shortly after that. Since the army was all he knew, he stayed in, advancing in rank. He was dashing in that uniform on horseback in every parade in every province in Italy. And here he is here. Did you get it up here for me? It's the military, Nino military picture. You see it there? Right there. That's the one. Okay, so there he is. And it's also the cover of the book. As you can see, the book is not out yet because Stratton Press is dragging their feet. They always do. You know, your book is either processed by Amazon or Ingram. So you're at their mercy. They decide when they're going to put your book together and send it to be released by the publisher. So anyway, in one of those parades, he was spotted by a silent movie producer who quickly signed him to a contract and took him to New York City. Now here he is, the next picture, please, in his straw hat, looks like song and dance man, actor, that's it, the actor. Try that one, see if that's the one. Yeah, there he is. By God, there he is, dressed in his little straw hat. They're playing the role of the song and dance man, a role that came easy to him because it seemed like he could hear music and be able to pick up any instrument and just play it by ear. I'm not sure of the year, but I think this was about 1920, 21, or 22 at the latest. Now, I don't know how many movies he made, as I only saw one once late at night on TV while watching a documentary about the making of another movie called The Chaperone. In that documentary, there was a short, silent movie clip of a flapper holding a cigarette in a long holder, and a man leans in and lights it for her. The profile of that man is my own sweet father. The clip was only about 10 seconds long, and I never saw it again. The career only lasted a short time. The company went broke and somebody absconded with the funds, and my pa was out of a job. Then he traveled to Cleveland, Ohio, where he lived and worked with some relatives that I never knew. In 1927, according to documents in my possession now, he became a US citizen. I believe because he didn't read or write, opportunities for employment for him were at the lowest level. The next picture, my pa, 1929, let's see here. Yeah, let's try. Just before he came to America, came back to Sicily. Yeah. Let's see very well. Oh, okay, there we go. Let's see. There was this actor picture. Let's go to, oh, I think we lost them there. There's something different up there. Oh, there we go. Well, that's great. Just scroll, no, scroll this way. Oh, there, right there. Okay, so you see Nino returns, that picture right there. That's my father in 1929 when he returned to Sicily. Now note the difference. He looks pretty robust there in comparison to the other pictures. Because, you know, males grow until they're about 22 years of age. Females stop growing shortly after puberty. Because he never had much food as a child, and then he was a captive of war, he didn't finish growing until he had steady work and access to good food. And I'm sure this was typical of a lot of men in that era. My mother had rather a privileged life. She had a 6th grade education, and she was one of only 2 surviving children for her parents, and she was heiress to her father's estate. My grandfather, Shasura, was a mystery man who died young. My parents married in late 1929, and my father was given my mother's inherited farm as a dowry. Okay, so my father returned to America then 1 month before the stock market crashed. Now here's Mama's picture. Here, you want to go back? That picture at the very end of the 2nd row, highlight it. There she is. You see, that's Mama. That picture was taken 93 years ago when she became engaged to my father. Now, if you notice how childlike she looks like a little girl. And I was always told that in this picture she was 18, but she wasn't. She was more like 20. Now that I have all these documents that were stashed somewhere in a closet for many years, and they recently came into my possession. Okay, so in spite of all these hardships, my parents worked hard. They bought a farm and they raised 6 children. Although my parents were never alone together before they were married, and they lived in a world 180 degrees different from where they ended up, they were always about the present and the future. They never talked much about the past. Everything was about work. It used to drive me nuts as a kid how their work could bring them such joy. They would always marvel at a glistening row of strawberry plants with white flowers and big red berries. It wasn't until I became an adult and had a family to support and a hard life of my own to deal with that I understood what it was about work that made them so happy. As my life spun out of control, with having a family, a non-supporting husband, and a job I had to go to every day in order to keep a roof over our heads, that I realized what it was work did for me and my parents. Things were orderly in time as I went about my tasks of taking vital signs, dressing wounds, and making beds. Like my parents before me, work gave me a sense of purpose and control I didn't have at home. I knew then that I had become my parents' daughter. I finally understood them in a way I never did growing up. Work was what grounded them, and the future was a bright, shining beacon ahead of them. My parents never looked back or talked very much about the old country. They were always going forward. Their children were Americans and had to speak perfect English as well as look American. My parents treated everyone with respect, no matter who you were, black, white, red, yellow, or brown. If you were in need, they helped you. They fed you and never asked questions. As children, we were never allowed to have anybody over without giving them food and drink. If we went to someone's house, we had to take a gift with us, even if it was just something from our garden, from the farm, or my mama's fine homemade biscotti. My parents were the ages of my friends' grandparents. I liked old people, even when I was young. I often accompanied my father when he visited old Italian friends from his boyhood village. I was never bored as my friends were when they had to visit relatives. In my old age, I understand this great gift of love and sacrifice my parents gave me, my siblings, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and their great-great-grandchildren who reside in America today. Although they were uneducated, they understood that education really is a great gift that no one can take from you. For me, perhaps, it was the greatest gift ever. It isn't only so that you could get a better job, make more money, and live a better life, although that's what they wanted for all of us. They understood that education was supposed to help you learn to live in the world and get along with other groups of people. We must all remember that there are no borders. There are only people, and they will travel the earth in search of what they need. They will marry whomever they choose. So we must all learn to get along together. In this day and age of clean, defined lines, we all crave everything to be black and white. And those are the two most favorite colors in the whole wide world. Those are the two, this is not how the world is, though, is it? It's gray, it's murky, with no defined line. My folks knew this better than I could ever understand it. They understood this. So it is my hope that you will read my book and perhaps come to know your parents better. I hope the descendants of my parents, and there are many of them, will read this memoir and come to appreciate, love, and understand the gift, the great gift that they have been given. It's the gift of freedom of choice. Thank you so much for listening to me today. My other books here, they are available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and from Stratton Press. And the new book coming out is published by Stratton Press, and it will be available in all those venues as well. Now here's some more pictures here from, is that the first row? Go back up. I think there's another row before this. No. Oh yeah, okay, we'll start. We'll go back. Yeah, you can go back to, they're in a different order than I was expecting. Okay, so this is the family picture there on the farm. That one is so interesting because that's all of us. And then I'm the smallest one right there on Mama's left. And my sister-in-law is actually there too. We were all living on the farm. At that time, it was 1951. Okay, you can go to the next. And then there's this picture here of my grandmother, Angelina Lenzo. Let's hit her next here. There she is, Angelina. Okay, Angelina Lenzo, that's my grandmother. That picture was probably taken in the 1890s. Now, if you go back here, she married late in life and had all her children late in life as well. Now, if you go back to, up a little farther, well, there's another picture of my father in his uniform. You can go ahead and get that one next. Yeah, that's fine. There he is again. Okay, now go back and let's go to my grandfather right there, Nino Senior, right there. Yeah, there he is. Now, I think that picture, my father and his father never got along. That's why my father lived in the street all the time. Now, I think that picture was taken about 1930 or so. I'm not really sure. I don't know how he died, when he died, or nothing about him at all. But I did find this picture of him. I thought it was pretty interesting. Okay, now go back and come down a little bit here, just a little, come down just a little. Oh, you can't, no, I'm sorry. Okay, all right, so then this is, let's see, there's this one right here. It says, happy birthday 75, right there, go there. Next. 75 right there in the middle, There you go. Now that's my father at his 75th birthday. Look at how robust of a man he was at 75. And we had a wonderful time. That was the birthday party. Okay, I'm back again. And then the up there, that picture of my parents on my wedding day, that was taken in the living room of Strawberry Fields Farm. And that was about 1970, so it was 51 years ago. Okay, moving right back again. These other pictures, this is the church where they married. This is my father's trip back to Italy in 1987. My brother took him back. He was 93 years old then. but he wanted to go back to Italy. So this is the Church of San Giuseppe where they were married. And then this is my father visiting the farm stand in Sinagra. He signed the farm back to my mother's brother, Nino Shasura, and his daughter Serena, and they farmed all that land. The farm is no longer in our possession, in any of the family members. And this is a little store that they had in downtown Sinagra that doesn't exist anymore either, but I thought it was neat. Okay, keep going here, Zach. All righty, and then this is a picture of us at the 75th birthday, right there. And then this picture, put my grandson up there and my father, if you could put them up there together. That picture of my father and that picture of my grandson.
Okay.
Yeah, right there. You see how much they look alike. It's amazing how these genes pass down to other people. And just a statistical. Oh, one more thing I would like to say. Everybody's cutting me off. I told you I have diarrhea in the mouth. I just like to say that on the back of my book, The Making of Nino, is a wonderful review by our own CJ Martello. Let me tell you, he's extremely talented. And if you want a good review on your book, ask him to do it. He's wonderful. I know he probably doesn't want me hawking his skills, but I am. So just statistically speaking, my parents had 6 children, 14 grandchildren, 29 great-grandchildren, and 19 great-great-grandchildren. Thank you so much. I'll be around if you want to ask questions.